elections. For the latest on this story, let's cross live now to our reporter, Juniour. Khumalo, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time. The Defence Minister coming close to, I suppose, issuing the sternest warning so far that they will be possibly releasing the Defence Force if the protest doesn't stop. It hasn't happened so far, though, but what is the reaction so far on the ground in terms of the tensions?
I can definitely confirm to you, Thabo, that the soldiers have been released to the streets of Maputo. We were driving just back to the hotel where we are currently staying right now, and we did see a lot of the military officials here in Maputo all over the place, especially on the northern side of the city, where basically it's the more affluent areas. Just close to the hotel where we are staying, there is the U.S. Embassy. Outside the U.S. Embassy, we saw a lot of the military officials also there, but also not just the military as well, but also the police officials as we were driving were all over the streets, basically trying to maintain the peace, because over the past few days actually, the results of the elections came out on the 24th of October. Since then, about 16 people have lost their lives, and over 100 people have been shot and injured. And we did hear that yesterday, most of the medical officials in the country, these include the doctors, the nurses as well, were out in the streets actually protesting along with some of these people that support the opposition party Pridemo, saying that even they can't deal with the number of casualties that are actually coming in. But a lot of the protesters, Thabo, are actually younger people that believe in Valencio Mondlane, who is basically the opposition party leader. He is the one who has basically said that these elections were rigged. He got about 20% of the electoral support, but he and his party have come out to say that they actually received 53% of the votes. They have approached the courts to say that this is what they believe, and they've also, according to that party, given documentation supporting this belief, but they still believe that law enforcement, even the courts, are actually under the ruling Frelimo. Frelimo has been in control basically for over 50 years. It's been 49 years. It's going to be 50 years next year, basically. So they have been in power for that long. So they don't believe that even taking that route of going to the courts will yield anything. That's why they've called on all their supporters to go into the streets and basically protest. We spoke to some of the young people in the streets of Maputo, and this is what they had to say.
We are stopping the buses because we are not working. We want to organize things in our country. So it's not possible that when we stop, it's not good that when we stop the buses, police prevent us from stopping them. They should stop because we are on strike so that we can organize things in our country. We are on strike, no one can work. We all want to work, but like this, no, they have to stop working because we want to work. Yes.
That's one of the young people there, Thabo, that we spoke to earlier on in the city center in Maputo. There were confrontations between those young people there with the police as they were trying to stop some of the commuters, saying that no one is supposed to go to work. We know that the opposition leader, Valencio Mondlane, has actually called for more intense protests tomorrow. We do expect that protest to get underway at about 8 o'clock in the morning. But he has come out and said that they don't believe that there is going to be any change, because they've approached the Electoral Commission of Mozambique to try and dispute the election results. The Electoral Commission here in Mozambique has actually maintained that the ruling Frelimo, which has been in power, has actually won these election results. But a lot of young people, again, seem to believe in the opposition leader. We also spoke to another young lady who had this to say about the opposition leader.
Estamos cansados. É que 10 não dá para trabalhar.
We are tired with thieves. Enough is enough. We want to work. We want Valencio Mondlane to be the president of this country. We are tired of Frelimo. Don't want Frelimo more in power.
Indeed. So we spoke to a lot of young people who seem to be the ones that are actually out in the streets, Thabo, protesting. We are awaiting to see the turnout that is going to happen tomorrow because that's the protest that a lot of people here in Maputo and the rest of the country actually are looking forward to, as they are saying that this might be the one protest that demonstrates to the governing party that the people on the ground really don't want them in charge of this country, Thabo.
The fact that the government knows that people will be out on the streets again tomorrow, have they reacted in any way? Are they going to, I suppose, allow them to exercise that right to protest? And is there an expectation, I suppose, of things getting out of control like they have been, I suppose, in recent days?
There is definitely an expectation, just speaking from some of the journalists on the ground, there is an expectation that things might get out of hand. Some of the journalists that we spoke to say that they stay in the outskirts of the city, so they will be making their way to the city, to Maputo, early in the morning to avoid any blockades that might happen as a result of those protests. But coming to the government, they seem to have prepared for this protest that is going to be taking place. As I've already mentioned, there are a lot of law enforcement officials that are in the streets here and trying to maintain that peace and order. We know also that some of the neighboring countries, including South Africa, that have closed their borders to Mozambique, fearing that those violent protests might spill over to those neighboring countries. But also the SADC chair, which is Zimbabwe, has actually called for an urgent meeting with all of the SADC countries. This meeting is going to start next week from the 16th to the 18th, basically to discuss this situation that is actually unfolding here in Mozambique. So there is that expectation that Daniel Chapo, who has been elected as the president according to the results as they stand right now, is also going to make his way to Zimbabwe to actually take part in that discussion with some of the leaders of the SADC nation. But there has been calls on the ground that even the opposition leader should be invited to those discussions, basically, so that maybe they might find common ground with the assistance of some of these leaders from the other countries in the SADC nation, Thabo.
So what are you hearing about that? Because I also see that the Mozambican Bar Association believes that there are conditions that are indicating that there'll be some bloodshed tomorrow, and they are calling for dialogue that needs to happen between society, the opposition candidate, and the government. Is there an appetite for that national dialogue to take place from Frelimo's side?
From Frelimo's side, there seems to be an appetite to basically sit down and engage in these talks. But from Predemo is actually a breakaway party from Frelimo. So if you are in South Africa, it might be a party like your EFF or your Mkhonto Wesizwe that broke away from the ANC, which is the Liberation Party, the party that liberated the people, which is Frelimo here in Mozambique. So it doesn't seem that from Predemo's side there is that appetite for engagement. They believe that this party, Frelimo, has been in power for far too long, and this is the reason why they do not take democratic processes seriously. So they believe that the engagements will amount to nothing, but a demonstration and a protest will be the only way, according to them, that will basically force Frelimo to back into the negotiation table. They want a recount of the electoral outcome, but also one of the complaints that they have is that even during the campaign period, it was marred by a lot of intimidation of the leaders of Predemo, but also they are claiming that there were about 900,000 ghost voters. So they want a recount of the votes, but also they do not trust the Electoral Commission of the country. So it's a bit of a dilemma for Predemo, as they seem to not trust the Electoral Commission. They also don't seem to trust the courts. So it appears that the only thing, their only resort at this point is basically going into the streets and marching against the current administration, Thabo.
They have, of course, we would have experienced here in South Africa during our elections, the call by the IEC to say, well, bring evidence if you've got. Have they brought forth evidence of the discrepancies that they're raising?
Yes, according to reports, they've actually brought evidence to the Electoral Commission of Mozambique. Some of the reports suggest that there are piles and piles of documents that they have taken to the Electoral Commission. But I guess tomorrow, when they do hold that protest, we do expect their leader to basically address the crowds that are going to turn up. But another thing about that protest that is expected to happen tomorrow, we know that it is going to be taking place here in the capital city of Mozambique, but the exact address has not been shared yet because there are fears that should they share those details, then the law enforcement officials will converge to that space and basically stop it before it even takes place. But whenever it does get underway tomorrow, we do expect the opposition leader to basically lay out what evidence they have collected so far that does prove that there was some election rigging, as he has been professing this whole time, Tab.